All right. So we've got another exciting show here today, and I'm going to just call you a healing counselor. How's that sound, Alexandra? I'm
Perfect.
with Miss Alexandra DeLee, very special person, a person that we actually came across, Alexandra, through our channel. And I think you had seen some of the videos that we did with Pamela, and you and Pamela you have a lot of similarities, a lot of stuff in common with each other. And, we started talking on the phone a lot about some of the things that you do as sort of a healing counselor and your story and kind of what happened with you and what you kind of spawned you into helping other people. And so, with that being said, welcome to the show today, and give us a
You.
little bit of information about yourself, who you are, and then we can get into your story of kind of how you got everything started.
Okay. My name is Alexandra DeLee, and I'm 64 years old. I have been working with personal injury attorneys and medical specialists for over 20 years, so I have a lot of connections and all over the globe. I'm a professional researcher, and since my battle with winning a battle with terminal cancer, I have a lot of information and a lot of doctors that will work through me that don't want their names out there, that I can help people with cancer and have even, I'm not supposed to say cure, but help them to help themselves to rid themselves of cancer and tumors. At, and I don't care what stage you're at, you can kill yourself of any cancer at any rate if you're willing to put the work into it.
Fantastic. So this all started when you personally had cancer, is that right?
Correct.
And what type of cancer did you have?
I had head and neck cancer. I think I might be saying it wrong, but scoliosis, head and neck cancer. I had a large tumor on my neck, 15 millimeter, and I had a large tumor on my tonsil blocking my throat. So I was in really big trouble, and I was at fourth stage and considered terminal.
Right. And how long ago was that?
That was almost 7 years ago now, I believe.
Okay, so I mean, that's not all that long, really, in all
No,
honesty. I mean, seven
no.
years ago goes 7 years these days goes like that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So you had that type of cancer, and there was sort of a climactic point of that, like which you had talked to me about, um,
Mhm.
where you really got into kind of dire straits.
Mhm.
Do you want to walk us through kind of the progression of that, what happened, and kind of how you got to that you know, um, real climactic point there where you were really in bad shape, bad waters.
Um, yes, after my, I guess it was my 34th treatment of radiation. I did not do chemo because I knew how toxic that was, especially at fourth stage when your immune system's trying to fight the cancer. But after my last radiation in San Diego, um, I was having some very difficult breathing issues, and the radiation didn't stop the growth of the cancer, and I had to be rushed to the ER because I was starting to bleed out, and I was very sick. And when I got there, they had told me to get off my phone and stop doing research because I was probably going to die that night or within 72 hours. So I need to get my family there. And so I kind of panicked because I had a special needs dog. And I thought, oh my God, what's going to happen to my Nikki? And then I thought, she doesn't know. Only God knows, when you're going to die. And the doctor was starting to walk back in the hospital that I was at. And I said, Doctor, are you God? And she said, No. I said, That's right. Of course you're not. And how dare you do that to me or anybody else and say you're going to die, then you're going to cure what little hope I have that I'm hanging on to exist. So long story short, I made some calls and found a doctor that was nearby. And oh, wait, before that, back up a little bit. When I was on the phone, I was talking to a doctor in Germany, and he had told me that he was working with a doctor in Mexico since I was in San Diego, that was close, and that they can get me in on a medical emergency and not have to wait at the border and start working on me immediately. So I did that. I went to Hope for Cancer, met with Dr. Anthony Jimenez there, and they started working on me immediately. And within 3 days, I was walking, talking, breathing on my own, and everything again. And they told me I had to change everything, my diet, my lifestyle. They were willing to educate me. They prayed for me. And I got to back up again a little bit. When I was in the hospital, I actually was praying, and I made a I made a deal with God because I'm a business person. And I said, Lord, you picked the right person. I have medical and legal background. So if you just spare my life, I promise that I will do everything in my power to change our system and to help others to help themselves to cure their cancer. So I have to fulfill my promise. So that's basically what I'm doing. And I still have a lot of connections with doctors all over who have helped me. And I traveled a little bit too, trying to find answers for cancer. And I've met a lot of specialists, and they've a lot of them don't want their names out there again, like I told you. But there's so many things you can do to beat cancer. And there's so much out there that has been hidden, and a pharmaceutical out there is not in your best interest. So let me tell you.
Alexandra, can I just back you up for just a sec? Because I do want to get in and get a few details. And because of the nature of the call, because we're getting deep into a subject that
Okay.
is normally a subject that I also, like, it's one of those subjects. It's a hot button. And let me just say that as a disclaimer that we're not making any medical claims, and we're not giving out professional medical advice, and we're not saying that anything mentioned here is going to you know use the C word. um, and you should get your own get your own professional medical advice, do your own research. So with that being said, I just want to throw that out there because we're getting into some really heavy material, and at the time and place where this is being talked about, this subject matter is kind of a hot potato, quite frankly. So um so I want to go back to the scene because you kind of blew through that a little fast. But so you're in the hospital and you're bleeding out. Where were you bleeding out from? Where was the bleeding out coming from?
Oh gosh. Down below
Internally, externally?
my nose, my ears, mouth, because I had so many blisters from the radiation that they did on my head and neck. And I was choking on these blisters in my mouth and spitting up blood. Um, yeah, that was it.
Yeah, we don't get to get too much more detail because that really gives me a good visual. And so you're in the hospital, and I love the fact that because we've talked a lot about how important hope is, and the thought process of knowing, hey, there is a chance, and I can overcome these types of obstacles mentally. Having that part still intact and still putting that, the power of the body, the power of the brain, and everything to do things really revolves around um, positive thought, positive thinking. And that's, like I said, it's as a disclaimer, you're not making, but I'm just saying that's a really important part of it that you're going to find that's going to be consistent. Um, so you're in there. Now, how does this conversation with God, is that you just laying there going, okay, this is really like getting down to the ninth inning right now. And you know what? I'm gonna number one, I'm gonna knock this out, but we all have that relationship with God. I feel like that spiritual connection that we have with God, at certain times like that, it's like, hey, I need to get the bat phone and get right to God, and we need to talk. Not that he's not already in your heart to begin with, but can you kind of walk through just where how that transpired and kind of a little bit about that conversation and then what you heard back or what you felt back after you said that, which then, maybe it was right after that that you get the call or talk to the doctor in Germany, and then you get down and it starts that cascade of events and things that you start seeing and going through that kind of, lead to that road of recovery.
Well, I did stop breathing at one point too, and I knew I was in really big trouble. I had to admit to myself, like, there might be a chance I might not see tomorrow, maybe not. But you know what happened, Sean, is the doctor made me so angry that maybe she saved my life because she made me so mad by saying, "Get off your phone, you're gonna die." When I knew she didn't know when I was gonna die. How would she know? She's not God. So that's when I had to break down and start saying some prayers and tell God that, hey, I'm in it. I promise I will do all I can to help people that become, in the same predicament that I'm in. And that's when I knew I better do something and do it quick. And that's what I did. Was that the answer that you were looking for?
Yeah,
Or?
no, that was good. And then from there, you go from there down to Mexico, meet with that doctor, and then that started kind of get you the information, the knowledge. And I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail, but you did touch on diet. You did touch on a few things that immediately that they did. What type of changes did they recommend for diet?
Oh my goodness. If God didn't make it, don't put it in your mouth. They told me that. If God didn't make it, don't put it in your mouth. But they wanted to make sure that I was getting no sugar whatsoever, none, zero zip. And they wanted to make sure I was eating a lot of green vegetables. Anything green is good. And if you could get anything organic, that would be better. And they did a lot of juicing, no fried foods, mostly everything raw, which was great. And they did a lot of oxygen therapy because the cancer cannot live in oxygenated environment. So we did a lot of that. And they did use a lot of oxygen chamber.
Okay, so I was going to ask if they're doing that with hyperbaric chambers.
Yes. And I
Hmm.
did that through my treatment too. And honestly, if I didn't do that, I don't think I would have lived because I could not have got through the treatments that I did without it because I was so weak and the breathing was very difficult. And when I was in the chamber, getting all the oxygen that I needed, my ears opened, my breathing was like normal, and I actually felt good. I actually felt better than any other time. So I was also going to a hyperbaric chamber there in San Diego and getting a lot of treatment besides because I had to go back and forth from San Diego to Mexico just for a while for my treatment. So I was doing that on my own besides being in the clinic in Mexico. Their hyperbarics are kind of small and not as nice. And the ones I was going to were huge that were made for where you can actually put a horse into,
We
honestly. And
sell, yeah, we sell a lot of hyperbarics and they've changed a lot. And, I'm in the medical industry also. So, I'm familiar with the ones that go into the hospitals, but it's interesting because hyperbarics for home use have really increased and they have soft shell and hard shell. Like
yes,
when they're going in and out of the hospital, the ones you're talking about, we usually have to blow a wall out of the hospital to either get it in or get it out, much like an MRI. And
correct.
Now they've made them, it broken them down to the point where you can get them through a 36-inch door frame, which in many cases, a lot of doctor offices and places we work with, even though they're a medical facility, they still have residential grade door frames and things. So that
Mhm.
technology's really advanced a lot and become a lot less expensive, a lot easier to get your hands on.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, but yeah, but that's a, and as long as we're on hyperbaric, 30, 40 years of documented case studies and science on the power of what oxygen, pure oxygen, can do to the body. And nowadays, we implement that with grounding technology and PEMF. And sometimes, in many cases, they're also doing red light therapy.
Yes,
But,
we did. And I have that at home as well.
oh, you do? You have a hyperbaric at home?
No, the red light
The red
therapy. I
light.
read.
Yeah.
Yes, did that when I was going through my treatments, and but the the medicine that they gave me in Mexico, they did not want me to do any red light therapy because it interfered with the medicine. But after
Mhm.
I was taking the medicine, then they insisted that I keep up the infrared therapy. So I end up buying my own spa and putting it at home with infrared as well, and lasers and much more.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Alexandra, you've made this pact with God. God has kind of gotten you to the right people, the right places, and you've gotten yourself onto the road to recovery. Talk about some of the first people that you have contact with as you're kind of coming out of the recovery phase, and maybe just some of the information and some of the people that you've, kind of run across that you've been able to give help and guidance to, and kind of how that whole thing gets started. I mean, first we got to get you on solid ground, then you get, kind of through the recovery, you get on solid ground, and then let's talk a little bit about some of the people that start coming into your path through friends of friends or through work or where it is, and talk about, some of the benefits or some of the information and help that you've been able to start providing that kind of gets you on that path to being a counselor.
Well, I've always been an alternative uh, medicine type person more than more than traditional. That's why I couldn't understand how I even got cancer, but I did. So everybody knew a lot about me, a lot of the doctors, a lot of attorneys. They actually supported me through treatment time and even helped fund me through treatments. And they had patients of their own or clients or friends of their own that had cancer, and they were telling my story. And of course, I put out a Christmas letter telling them everything. And so they started sending me friends of theirs or family members of theirs that I educated in my experience that have helped me, or other information that I received from doctors um, on this issue that would help as well. And I started doing, like I said, some of the lectures and going to different churches and Christian radio, Christian podcasts with other people that have invited me in to help. So, and it's really nice because when I feel like I'm getting a little overwhelmed because I can't get stressed, that's the big key to helping with cancer as well. You have to eliminate any and all stress, especially while you have it. That's a big deal. So I had to tell people, friends, and what have you, even the people that are helping with cancer, hey, I can't do a whole lot because, I can't get stressed myself. So, which is nice because I think that God senses that in a way and only gives me as much as I can handle. When it's getting a little too much, then miraculously it just backs off, which is great. So a lot of people have come in and I bring them into my own home and I'll say, okay, this is what I did. This is what has helped me. And then I explain why it helps me. And just like oxygen therapy, like I was saying, and pH is a big deal too. And I tell them pH is get some pH strips and check your pH every day because cancer cannot survive in a perfect pH balanced body. So a lot of information is thrown out and it's overwhelming. And I know that. And I tell them, call me anytime, any part of the day. And if something's, you know, if you don't feel like you're understanding it, or if there's an issue with it, whatever it is, communicate with me. I'll help you. And it is overwhelming. And especially when you have cancer and they're putting all these ideas in your head like, oh my God, you're going to die within 6 months or what have you. And I try to tell people too, do your own research, be your own advocate. Just because your doctor says this, or that, we're all different, okay? We're all different. And they need to do their own research because maybe what works for some people won't work for the next one. So, and I try to tell them too, you don't get cancer because of your lack of radiation or your lack of chemo. What you need, your problem is your right now, your immune system is so weak. You need to empower and strengthen that immune system with everything you can, with your food, with your diet, with your exercise, with your stress levels, everything. And if you can accomplish that, your body will start healing itself. I know I've helped over 50 people, which might not seem like a whole lot, that I know of that have helped themselves rid themselves of cancerous tumors and what have you. And these things work because you know what? All you need to do is help your body to battle it. Your body's weak. Your immune system is so torn up. And you don't need to put more toxins into your body to make matters worse. Right now you need all the strength you can get when you're battling cancer. Actually, any disease, really. So I hope I answered your question without going overboard or too much information.
No, that's good. That's good stuff. So you bring people over to your house. Now, do you do the sound, you do sound bowl healing, right? A sound bowl?
I do vibration healing, crystal healing, and I give a lot of information with that too. And I explain each crystals and the vibration, which is the same thing with the sound bowl. That's huge. That's a big deal. And I actually use a rife machine as well, and I go into detail and explain that. Dr. Rife, Dr. Rife, who had the he actually built a machine that was killing cancer cells. And of course, he was mysteriously killed and his method was taken away. But you can still get some of those machines that were rebuilt. And you know what, Sean? I don't know. God works in mysterious ways. Because when the night I was diagnosed, the funniest thing, I got this package about Dr. Rife when I came home, and a DVD of Ty Bollinger. What is it called? The Cancer Cures Deception or something like that he puts out. Mysteriously, it was there, and I did not order it. And you have to pay for it, but it landed on my. And I was asking everybody, and I thought my best friend Kathy sent it. And I said, Kathy, thank you so much for sending me this information. Oh God, I needed it. And she said, Alexandra, I sent that to you. I said, well, where did it come from? I don't know. But things like that, I tell you, when you're in the spiritual realm and you're thankful every day to the good Lord, things just happen like that. It's hard to believe, right? But it does.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, we
So
technically live in a land of infinite miracles, right? So when you start opening up to that reality, then more of that can start kind of coming your way. So you do the sound bowls, the hyperbaric, and is there people that you run across aside from that type of a diagnosis that have other types of illnesses that you've let's talk about some of the other things that, because once you kind of get that dialed in, and you're dialed into the health and wellness protocols for something that's serious, I'm sure that a lot of that sort of, helps other types of ailments, other types of diseases or health conditions. What are some of the other ones that have, come your way where people have asked for advice and information?
So many. Well, my own sister, gosh, that was not really that long ago, maybe 2 years ago. She, very strong person, and I thought she was healthy, but she is handicapped. She has cerebral palsy. And I got a call that she was in the hospital battling for her life. Apparently, one of her intestines was blocked, and they found out that she had diabetes, and we didn't know that. And she was very sick. And I tried to get some information to the doctors out there on how this could things that could help her, but they didn't want to hear it, and they didn't want to hear me. And sometimes your family thinks that the doctor knows best. So I couldn't get a lot through, but I worked through this was in Colorado and I'm in California. So I had to do a lot of this over the phone, and it was during COVID times. So you can only have like one or two people in the room. And so that was very difficult. But what we did is I also have what's called prayer warriors, a group of professionals that are either master Reiki or master what is the other one? Reiki and Bowen therapy. I have a lot of friends that are masters. And when somebody really needs help, we do our prayer group and we bring everybody together. So when my sister was really sick and she even died on the operation table and they brought her back, at that exact time, we put our prayer group together. We were doing our sound bowls, everything prayer, sending Bowen therapy from their locations to my sister. Let me tell you, she did great. My mom snuck in a bunch of asparagus to help her, and natural things that her body needed. And everything was gone. Everything was gone, Sean. No diabetes. She's strong today. Doesn't have it anymore. She's doing well. She's perfectly fine. I mean, that's the power that these things have. And if you believe and you have the strength, you can send that energy to people. Send it in prayer, whatever you can do it, because that's what they need. But the power of healing is miraculous if you just believe that it is. It is. And like I said, we did the sound bowls, we did it all. We did probably a good hour, maybe it was longer, it didn't seem that long. But we did that when my sister Shelly was in the hospital and not doing very well. So if she can do it, anybody can.
I love that. So you're talking about, yeah, go ahead.
But that was one of many instances where people were dying of COVID in the hospital and things like that we've helped doing the same thing, same remedies. You know, we were sneaking ivermectin into the hospital. We're bad, but so maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Oh, you're good. So one thing that I've been really focused on lately, I'm just going to put it up here, is a gentleman named Neville Goddard. And hopefully you can kind of see that. I know that there's a lot of glare coming off the can or off the lighting system here, but it's one of his thing is called Believe It In. And um um it's just, and it's all based on stuff that comes out of the Bible, off the book of Revelations.
Mhm.
And I'm a huge fan of Bob Proctor and Napoleon Hill. And
Yeah.
um, John Asseroff and Tony Robbins and
Me too. I have
Jake.
that stuff.
Yeah, and I love it all, but there's something about Neville Goddard is talking the same message, but he's just saying it a little bit differently. But he's really coming from the pulpit, like in many ways, he's really like everything's coming from the Bible. But I have found like his stuff, it's a combination of everything. Everybody's teaching resonates a little. It's overall it's the same message, but
Mhm.
there's something about Neville Goddard that I have really found for me is like the pinnacle step to really kind of push through the process of uh, manifesting through believing and believing through knowing that God is everywhere and everything. So, anything you want to do, everything emanates from that single person. Um, but in your experience, I love what you're talking about the prayer because now we start getting into not only the power of spirit, but we're also getting into what we might talk about, which is quantum physics, where all you need is a conscious thought on that exact person, and you can literally send that energy anywhere in the universe. And the law of quantum, which is really mind boggling, it's actually really cool. It's
Mhm.
really fascinating and it's really mind boggling simultaneously because thinking that you can be anywhere in the universe and instantly think of somebody in that very second you do, there's no limits to time. It instantly is transferred and then taking all
Yeah.
that conscious, all that goodwill and all that positive vibrations and sending it to somebody like your sister, and it becomes exponentially more powerful as you get more and more people that focus that energy. But
Yeah. And there's power
this
in
really,
numbers.
I'm sorry.
And there's power in numbers. The more people you can get to pray and do that, just like the Bible says, there's power in numbers. I'm sorry, but I didn't
Oh,
want
you
to
don't have,
lose.
no, that's perfect.
The more people you can get involved and pray, and I do that when people are come to me and they're sick. I know so many pastors, and my brother's actually a pastor in Utah. So I just hit everybody and say, okay, I give them a name. This is somebody who needs healing, or their pet. We love our pets. They get cancer too, but
Yeah,
they healing. So let's pray for them. Let's give them what we're
absolutely.
them too, and talk to their vet about it. You know, talk to them. There's alternative vets out there too, and they use a lot of things that we use to help the animals.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about your sister. Do you want to give us a couple more just really good stories of people also that you've come across with different health issues that you've also kind of used this conglomeration of knowledge, healing, prayer, all this, let's talk about a few more of those.
Well, there's I don't want to give anybody's names out, so maybe I'll just give their first initial.
Yeah,
There
that's
was
fine.
a gentleman, prostate cancer. We'll call him Mr. M. He was fourth stage. He was doing very bad. And so I had to completely change his thought process in understanding that first of all, if you're starting to get better, you don't go do stupid things like go eat a bowl of ice cream or something like that. And um, so for him, I told him that asparagus is really good for prostate cancer. And
Okay.
that was my research. And I just sent him information of what I found out about that. And he said he wanted one good thing. So after we talked about that, and I wanted to give a bunch more information, but that was the first meeting when he came to my house. He went to Costco and he bought um, just pallets of asparagus. You gotta do that, it goes fast. But anyway, he bought all this asparagus and he was eating it and juicing it and doing all the greens like I had told him, maybe a few other things. But he said it was the prayer and the asparagus that actually saved his life. And you know what? Maybe he's right. Maybe he's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And I'm just gonna real quick. I know that's hard to read these. Let me do it
uh,
with this hand. It's backwards, right? You can't see it.
yeah, send me
It's
that in.
backwards. But the bottom one says dwell in the fulfilled desire. So basically what that and you have to listen, like I'll listen to these hundreds of times, but dwell on the fulfilled desire, meaning that you're already visually, like you're already visually and mentally at the place where you want to be. You're
Mhm.
not focused on where you're at. You're mentally and physically projecting exactly where you want to be, and you're already living as if you were there, and then
Yes,
everything else catches up to you. But
absolutely.
the believe it in is one way of doing it. You already believe that it's there and you believe it in. And then he talks about how all the prophets in the Bible, and he quotes all this stuff. And then, he talks about all these different examples of how he's done it, his family has done it. Earlier, I was listening to one of his videos. He was talking about Caesar, and Caesar believed himself into being the great, sort of the king of Rome, right? I mean, like Caesar believed it in. He wasn't born necessarily into it. He believed himself in, and he goes in and talks about people that understood the concept, put it to use, and then really fulfilled it at a grand level. And it could be for anything. It could be health, wellness. It could be where you want to go with your life. It can be achieving whatever your dreams are, whatever they might be.
Yeah.
Um, but it has spiritual threads to it. And
Mhm.
so I really like Neville because he's very no nonsense. I think like with a lot of us, even with calls like this, there'll be a certain number of people that this call might really resonate with. They're like, wow, that really is vibing with me. And there might be some people like, it's just not my time, and I just don't know anything about that. I'm not sure about that. And that's quite a stretch. And and like I've always said, we love everybody. I mean, we're not. I got to get it out there. The bottom line is that in some cases, even videos like this, Alexandra, it might take somebody 5, 6, 7 years before they go back and say, "Wow, I remember that video that I watched with those two, and they were talking about some stuff, and the guy was a little bit out there, the lady was a little out there, but for whatever reason right now, it really seems like maybe I'm going to go back and start thinking about that. So um, I think, sometimes with anything and everything, it's a process. And
Mhm.
sometimes you need to hear it. And then maybe you just get a little twist of a little different presentation, or a little different approach, or a little different way of thinking about it. And then for whatever reason, that particular thing seems to resonate. Um, so keep going with the story with the gentleman and the asparagus. Where does this come out? How does he end up
He
he
beat
ends up
cancer.
getting himself back on his feet and he's good? And
Yeah, he beat four-stage cancer, and he said he owes it to the asparagus. The
I love
asparagus
that.
stop. He slowed down in his business, which is wonderful. And there's a couple of other ones too. I met this girl. We'll call her Miss S. Okay, so I met this gal, a young gal, and she said, Alexandra, she was in actually Mexico. I'm not sure if she lived there. And she said, I can't afford all those treatments that you're doing. I'm just a young girl, and I don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. She said, but I have to share something with you because I know that you help a lot of people. And she said, you've heard of frankincense and myrrhs. And I said, yes. Matter of fact, I have a story about that too. And that I told her. And she said, Alexandra, I have to tell you about this. I come here to help people too when I was in Mexico. I said, oh, okay. Very young, pretty gal. I don't think she was more than maybe 22, 23 at the most. And she said, I had brain cancer, and it was third stage, but I didn't have the money. I haven't had the money to do anything. She said, but I'm cured. I said, well, how did you do it? I have to know. And she said, well, I told you I knew about I wanted to tell you about frankincense and myrrh. She said, I put the oil on my finger. And since I couldn't put it on my brain, I put it on the roof of my mouth every day throughout the day. And she said, And then my brain cancer was gone. So yes, because we were talking about the Bible and different, things they say that God gives us in on every there's a remedy for everything. And it says something like that in the Bible that God gives us everything. So she said that's what she did. She did that. And there's a lot of people that don't have the funds to do all these treatments and take all these remedies and what have you. But if they're willing to slow down their lives, willing to pray like crazy. Oh, and that's what they did when I went to Mexico for Hope for Cancer. When I went in immediately, they started holding my hands and praying for me too. Sorry, didn't need to get off subject, but just want to let you know that prayer is a must. It's a big deal. So that was her experience. And I know another gal, she's a retired surgeon, and she was talking to me, and I told her about um, Izakia T. Am I saying that right? Izakia T. And I told her the story about Izakia T, the nurse Renee Passy. She was a nurse that was she was actually a nurse in, I believe, Canada, and was killing all these people with um with Izakia T. So I told her about it, and that she said that's all she used. She used the Izakia T, and twice she healed her own brain cancer twice with the Izakia T prayer and just changing her lifestyle and eating right and no sugar, no more sugar at all, no processed sugar whatsoever, no sweets. And so that was a big deal. And we still stay in connect with each other and talk to each other about different types of remedies that help in different situations for healing. But that was a great story, that one for her, that she used the Izakia Tea. Do you know about that one?
Do not.
Oh, okay. And another really good one that I think she started using was Carnivera. Carnivera, they talk about that on late night radio. Dr. Welch talks about Carnivera. He does the late station radio, uh, AM, FM radio at night. And he talks about that. So now she's doing that too. But there's other people that have taken the Carnivera and that have ridden themselves of different illnesses, not just cancer. But the big deal too is to eat right, no stress, and start doing some natural healing. Lots of prayer. Lots of prayer. Get your friends, your church, whoever you can ask. Ask for it. That's all you have to do. They'll do it.
It's awesome. And I know that there's places like I spent a lot of time in San Diego. I spent almost 30 years there, so I know there's a lot of stuff going back and forth down into the Baja area.
Yes.
But there's a lot of there's a place in La Crosse, Wisconsin, and it's Viterbo, and they have a group of nuns, and those nuns basically have been doing 24-hour prayer circles for like the last 70 or 80 years. And you can literally mail your prayers into them, and they'll put them into their altar area where they are nonstop. And and I do believe that in addition to the nuns that there are volunteers and people that also come in, but it's been nonstop prayer for 70, 80 years. I know there's another place in Michigan, because I talked to one of the nuns there before, and they also do the exact same thing. So these resources are out there, and I think what I'll do is maybe I'll put those links down here in the bottom underneath our video. And if people are out there and they're looking for help or looking for additional prayers, you can reference a couple of these different places and send your prayers into them.
Sure.
And that's something that we wanted to do here. I grew up in South Bend, Indiana, and my father taught in Notre Dame University, and there was a place called the Grotto. And the Grotto also was very much like a lot of these Catholic-based places where they just had all of the you could light a candle on like sort of an altar. You know, the candles were all in this big holder, and then make a wish or make a prayer for that candle for that. And so we're looking at doing something like that here at our facility where we start doing prayer requests or kind of doing ongoing vigils. But I know that there's a lot of places that have been doing that for extended periods of time, and there's a lot of other resources that are out there. So this might be a good time to start referencing some of those. In addition to, have you watched our channel? I know you saw Pamela.
Yes.
Um, we have Dr. Jimmy Reed, and she runs a prayer group and a manifestation group called Global Manifestations, and they are a very powerful church group. And Dr. Jimmy Reed, we're going to have to get her and you together and do some requests.
Right.
Yeah, globalmanifestations.org. And it's Dr. or Pastor Doctor, she's a doctor and a pastor, Jimmy Reed, Jimmie Reed. Phenomenal lady. We've done probably 4 or 5 calls together on this channel, and we
Mhm.
talk about the power of prayer. We talk about all that, but I've met a lot of her staff, and
Yeah.
these people are 100% believers. Like if you like when you talk, everybody's dabbling their toes into spirituality, a little dabble here, got my knees wet. They're straight up diving deep into the waters, and they are, deeply engaged with 100% faith and confidence that anything they set their mind to, they will accomplish. And they do. And that's what I love about, the spirituality aspect with the manifestation aspect with, um, you know, global manifestations with using your spiritual self to make the world a better place and to help other people and to give them hope, which is one of the things we originally started off our call with. So, um, what I'd like to do, Alexandra, is I'd like to do a joint call maybe with you and Dr. Reed. We could field calls from some of our listeners, some of our viewers, and then we could do prayers for them and their families. Which is one of the reasons we did this call today was to kind of introduce you, tell your story, give a little bit of your background, and then set it up where people can come online, some of our listeners, our viewers, and say, hey, my daughter, my friend, my mom, whatever it is, could use some help, use some prayers. And then we just, do prayers, and then you can give any advice or, like you use some of your intuition to say, hey, you know what, I'm really feeling like, take a look at this, definitely look at the diet. I love the advice that you're getting. That's similar advice that I've heard through many other sources, especially the refined sugar. Refined sugar in general is really not good for you anyway, in any sense. Um, but there's certain times where it's like a no tolerance policy where you can't have any. And
Right.
um, there was a really good Netflix show on that I saw a year or two back, and they were basically showing how that was one of the things they were doing, to kind of go down the path to wellness, and they were substituting that with monk fruit. And
Oh,
apparently, monk fruit was a much more plausible way of getting the sugar cravings satisfied, but not feeding into having the same negative effects that processed sugar would. So so do you want to share maybe one more story, and then we'll go ahead and you can give any final last words, or we could wrap it up now and get ready to do another call with you in the next week or two when you're ready, and um or or
I think
anything you'd like to share in particular.
I think we hit on a lot of things. There's just so many things that can help our bodies heal out there. I do want to say that. And there's so much out there that are cancer killers, easy things that you could do for your body. But here's the thing. A lot of people, they start working with me too, and their tumors are shrinking, everything's good, but I'm going to say this anyway. A lot of times the doctors put the fear of God into you and say, well, I know best. I went to medical school and we need to start doing this, this, and that. Okay, let me tell you something. A lot of people that I've helped and their tumors are shrinking, they're doing good, they're starting to get their energy back. And then all of a sudden, maybe their families come in or loved ones and they say, hey, we love you, but you really need to start listening to your doctor. Cancer, serious, blah, blah, blah. And especially at fourth stage, this is really important. Then they go to their doctor and they do the treatments. When you're at fourth stage, you have to really watch it because your immune system's already so low and so weak that when you do these treatments, I've lost a lot of people that I've helped because they end up doing that. And when your system's that weak, you're not dying because your body's lacking toxicity or something else that's going to hurt your immune system. So when you're in this, I'm just saying this is so important. Be your own advocate. Do your own research. Google's not always the best place to go, okay? You can go and get your own medical books and just do your own due diligence. Be your own patient advocate. And I do that too. I go with a lot of people to question the doctors on certain things and that works out very well. As a matter of fact, I'm helping a gentleman right now, and I've looked at his blood work and his scans, and I don't have any medical background. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an attorney, but I worked with a lot of MRI screens and CAT scans and things like that to know what things look like. And I ran hospitals as well. I was a certified MA, but I never really did the work because I was always a supervisor. But I know what the blood work is supposed to look like, and I've looked at and reviewed people's charts and said, you know, I know your hospital or your doctor said that you have cancer, but I'm not seeing it here, and I think it could be something else. Please get a second and third opinion. And that's happened too, where people don't have cancer and they really need a second, third set of eyes to look at things. Okay. But please, if anything, anybody listens today, be your own advocate. Go out there and do the research yourself. Doctors don't know everything. Okay. They do not. Just listen to your own common sense, please. And just do your own research. And second, third, fourth opinions are a good thing. That was important.
Yeah, that is important. That's great advice. And there's a lot of information out there. You've touched on stuff that I'm very knowledgeable on, which gets into the Rife technology, the history and story of Mr. Rife. And there was stuff that they were creating back in the 20s and 30s that was phenomenal technology. And some of it, like you said, is out there now. But with all that being said, and with the ability that technology has, I really feel like that stuff is only as good as the person using it, because you cannot be out there pounding down a Milky Way bar and then
Yeah.
going and hitting a Rife machine. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like you have to do the work, which means healthier life. Just you have to go through and doing that, because what good does it do to sit and use one of those technologies that we've got, and then you're basically going out and feeding back into the exact same problem and exacerbating it. And then, so I really do like, where you're going with a lot of this. And I think that the prayer, the hyperbaric stuff that we talked about, also phenomenal technology. But I would also say, for somebody that's out there, if you say, well, I don't have money to buy a hyperbaric chamber, there's a lot to be said for really deep breathing, right? Deep breathing exercises that can oxygenate the body. You can go in and do sort of meditation, but meditation many times can be many different things. But give me just a sec here. Hold on.
Hold on, me too.
Come here.
Another way too is oxygen therapy. You can get hydrogen peroxide food grade that they had me doing in Mexico too. doing the baths and using that because it puts oxygen into the body. One of the doctors here in Sacramento is big on that too. And he was telling me, put 2 cups of this in your bath water and soak in it every day. So yes, oxygen is so important when you're
So
battling.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So find things that work for you, find options that are available to you. Believe it in, believe it in, believe it in, believe it in for anything. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything related to being not feeling all that great, but dwell in the fulfilled desire. Get into all the different things because ultimately, whenever this whole thing gets resolved, you want to live a higher quality of life and a better life. And you
Yes.
know, the story, really a great story with you, Alexandra, is that it's sort of what we would call a pain to purpose. You found yourself in a situation that was certainly not good, and you were able to get, and overcome that. But now you're not only, thriving and doing well, but you're living a healthier, better life because of what you learned and the knowledge base that you've got. And certainly there's something fulfilling about helping other people. So, with that being said, before we wrap it up, is there anything you'd like to say to everybody before we go?
I think I hit on a lot right now, and I know it can be overwhelming for a lot of people, but I think I hit on a lot of things now, but there's so much more. You're right. It has to follow up with probably another time. Um, so I just want people to do their own research, be your own advocate, and believe, okay? And when you pray, believe it. Ask God for healing. You'll get whatever you ask for, but you got to believe right here in the heart.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from your heart.
Yeah. And I'll just finish. Neville Goddard always says, we all believe that if we jumped off the top of a building, we'd hurt ourselves. If we could have the same belief that if we believe in what we really want, we can achieve it or make that happen as
Yes.
strongly as, and nobody's jumped off the building, by the way. They just absolutely know they believe, right, that that's what would happen. And so he always says that if you could believe that strongly, in the positive outcome of what you're trying to accomplish, that you could do the exact same thing. So
Hmm.
with that being said, Alexandra, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today.
Thank
One more
you.
time, I'm just
Ditto.
going to say, like, we're not medical doctors, we're not giving out medical advice. This is all just, I would say, for entertainment
Experience.
purposes. I love the fact we talked, say, do your own research, because it's up to each individual person to not to educate themselves. One thing that does irritate me in this day and age is a lot of people need to be spoon fed. I'm not a big proponent of spoon feeding people. It's like you go out and spend 15 minutes and you do a few searches on Google. Anything that I talk about or you talk about or anything about benefits of hyperbaric, go do a search on Google. You don't, just go
Yes.
out and do your own due diligence,
Yeah.
and you'll find that there's a lot of information, and it's actually much better when it comes from an authoritative source like a medical study, instead of somebody doing
Exactly.
what I call parrot talk, which is repeating the study. Go find the studies, go find the knowledge, go find the information, and
That's it.
you'll find that you actually feel a lot more informed, because
Hmm.
a lot of times, even when we're relaying information, we're doing it in segments because we just don't have the time. But when you
Right.
really start doing your own due diligence, you can really put together and get a lot of really good information and really know, from a found scientific standpoint, hey, this is what these guys were talking about, and I'm finding it here. So, Alexandra,
Yes.
thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. And
Thank you.
stay with
Ditto.
me. I'm going to go ahead and sign off on the call, but I
Okay.
will stay with you here for just a second or two after we get done with the
Okay.
meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.